A wounded girl wakes up in the middle of a cabin on a half-submerged yacht. She regains consciousness, immediately starts calling out for Richard, and tries to escape to no avail. After calming down a bit, she removes her heavy gear and manages to climb onto the deck through a hatch. There, she finds a safety rope that appears to have been attached to a man. When she sees the broken carabiner, she begins to cry. The story jumps to 5 months earlier. At this point, the protagonist, Tammy, has arrived in a port in Tahiti. Tammy has been working as a cook on a cruise ship. After her contract was up, she decided not to return home and instead stayed on the resort island. She quickly adjusted to her new life, finding work doing odd jobs at the port and spending her free time exploring and surfing. One day, while working on the dock, Tammy meets Richard, the captain of a small yacht that has just arrived in port. The two are instantly drawn to each other and agree to meet the next day for dinner. During their conversation, it becomes clear that they are kindred spirits. Both love traveling and sailing and are not interested in a traditional, settled lifestyle. On their next date, Tammy and Richard go sailing. During the trip, Tammy demonstrates her impressive sailing skills. The story then flashes back to the present. Tammy is adrift on a damaged yacht in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Using binoculars, she scans the horizon, hoping to locate Richard. She then tries to radio a distress signal, but to no avail. Desperate and exhausted, Tammy collapses on the deck and begins to cry. The film takes us back to the past, showing the romantic bond that develops between the two characters. During this time, they spend all their time together, taking long walks and enjoying a happy, carefree life. After waking up from these pleasant memories, Tammy picks up her binoculars again. This time, she spots a lifeboat on the horizon. Rejuvenated, Tammy tries to sail closer to the lifeboat. However, the yacht is badly damaged, and the broken mast prevents it from steering properly. Tammy decides to cut the rope holding the mast, which frees the yacht but also causes it to lose its mainsail. Nevertheless, she plugs the leak with reinforced tape, pumps the water out of the cabin, and erects a small mast on the bow of the yacht. After these efforts, the yacht is now somewhat seaworthy. Upon reaching the lifeboat, Tammy ties a rope around herself and dives into the water without hesitation. As she approaches, she finds Richard. He is alive but too badly injured to swim. With great difficulty, she manages to pull him into the yacht and hoist him onto the deck using the rope. The story shifts back to the past. This time, the couple are in a restaurant, having a pleasant conversation about life before heading out to dance in high spirits. The harsh reality is far from ideal. Richard has suffered a severe broken leg and Tammy has improvised a makeshift splint using available materials. In addition, Richard is struggling to breathe due to a large bruise on his side, a clear sign of broken ribs. In the next scene, it becomes clear how the characters ended up on this yacht. One day, while walking through the market, they are discussing their future plans and choosing a destination for their trip. At that moment, Richard came across acquaintances who were in dire need of travel for work. Richard was offered a large reward to take their yacht to its destination. The journey was long, but the couple had been planning a similar adventure and eagerly agreed. Moreover, the yacht was luxurious and the money they earned was enough to allow them to live comfortably for a year. After packing their belongings, the couple set off on their sailing trip. Meanwhile, Tammy and Richard had been adrift at sea for 2 days. After calculating their coordinates, Tammy discovered disturbing news. They had deviated significantly from their intended course. Their search area now covered over 1,500 square miles. This part of the ocean lacked air and sea traffic, meaning there was no hope of rescue. When Tammy realized this, she fell into despair, but Richard comforted her and refused to let her give up. Later, Tammy used a rope to measure the yacht's speed as well as the direction of the current and wind. The data showed that under the current conditions, their journey to their intended destination would take several months. Reviewing the map, Tammy suggested that they change course and try to reach the Hawaiian Islands instead. This would cut their time at sea by almost half. Despite the high stakes, Tammy decides to change course and sets a new direction. Finally, she takes a moment to focus on herself. Tammy stands in front of a broken mirror, stitching up a horrific wound on her head. She then gathers all of her food supplies and brings them to Richard. She opens a jar of peanut butter, and the two enjoy it, forgetting their troubles for a moment. On the 5th day, Tammy checks the yacht's course and realizes that the yacht has drifted slightly off course. She believes this is due to her poor judgment, as she has no previous experience in navigation. Richard senses her tension rising, calms her down again, and she decides to check the steering mechanism. This requires her to dive underwater. Her suspicions prove correct. A torn sail is tangled in the rudder. After several unsuccessful attempts and taking a deep breath, Tammy finally manages to free the mechanism. All this time, Tammy continues nursing Richard, treating his wounds. On the 10th day, they run out of drinking water, leaving them with only 1 week's worth of canned food. In this tragic situation, Richard suggests that Tammy put her principles aside and use a harpoon to catch fish, arguing that starving to death is worse than killing a fish. However, Tammy refuses, as she is a committed vegetarian and does not want to harm living things as long as they have some food left. One day, a heavy rain begins. Tammy quickly places all available containers on the deck. This allows her to replenish their supply of fresh water, and for the first time in a long time, she and Richard drink their fill. On the 18th day, Tammy accidentally discovers a stock of alcohol in the cabin. This allows them to relax a bit and temporarily forget about their tragic situation. After another 11 days of drifting, Tammy spots a large ship at night. She immediately begins to flash signals in a desperate attempt to attract attention. She waves her arms and screams, but it is all to no avail. The ship passes by their yacht and quickly disappears into the fog. In a state of shock, Tammy collapses into hysteria, but eventually realizes that it was just a hallucination. Richard, who comforts her, explains to her that hallucinations are normal in their condition, but she must not give in to them because they have survived this long thanks to her actions. Over time, Richard's condition worsens. He sleeps most of the time and struggles to speak a few words when he wakes up. Despite this, Tammy continues to care for him and tries not to lose hope, knowing that they are still together. The film flashes back to the past once again. In this scene, Richard confesses his love to Tammy and proposes to her. The happy young woman happily agrees, but their happiness is short-lived. The next day, strong winds blow over the ocean. Using the radio, the couple learns that a storm is approaching. They try to change course, but unfortunately, it is already too late. The storm quickly intensifies and quickly overtakes the yacht. The couple takes every precaution possible, but it is not enough. The giant waves toss the yacht like a toy ship and it quickly capsizes. After Richard sends Tammy to the cabin for safety, he remains at the helm until the last moment, causing her to be thrown overboard. When Tammy regains consciousness this time, she begins to cry, addresses Richard, and utters the words that she is finally ready to let him go. The audience is then shown what really happened. Richard was never on the lifeboat. At a critical moment, Tammy's mind conjures up his presence to help her deal with seemingly insurmountable challenges. In her darkest moments, she imagined consulting him to make the right decisions. Now, she has come to terms with this and can finally accept his death. Tammy continues her journey. She learns to use a harpoon and can now catch fresh fish for food. On the 41st day of drifting, a bird suddenly lands on the deck of the yacht. Surprised, Tammy grabs her binoculars and spots the long-awaited beach on the horizon. She manages to reach Hawaii on her own. Tammy fires a beacon, and this time a passing ship spots her. The crew offers her some food and tows her yacht to safety. On the beach, in the next scene, Tammy returns to Tahiti. Her first stop is Richard's yacht. Looking at the photos, she thinks of all the happy moments they shared together. Richard Sharp drowned during Hurricane Raymond. He was 33 years old. Tammy Oldham spent 41 days adrift on the open ocean, all alone. At the time, she was only 24 years old. In her memoirs, she admitted that she only survived thanks to Richard. His voice guided her throughout the entire ordeal. Thanks for watching, guys.